Hello everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel, Homoeopathic Super Sessions by Dr. Jagos. Today we'll bring the fifth part of Totality of Symptoms. Let us consider the point. It helps us to identify the susceptibility. So susceptibility can be identified by the totality, by the summation of the following points. So there are 7 points on which the susceptibility can be identified. That is the symptom exhibited, the nature of the case, the pathology involved, fundamental miasm, history of suppression, sensitivity of the patient at both the mental and physical level, and the general condition of the patient. So please remember, these 7 points have to be taken in summation. That means what? Whatever totality is there, from that you have to work out all these 7 points. And after working out all these 7 points, you have to come to a conclusion by the summation, taking into account all the sum of all the 7 points, and then identify whether the susceptibility is increased or whether it is decreased. So basically, we have to, now let me give you an example, or let me just elaborate on each of these 7 points in short, so that it will become more clear to you. So symptom exhibited. So from the totality, we have to see what type of symptom the patient is exhibiting. It could be a common symptom or it could be a characteristic symptom. If the symptom is common, you know the susceptibility is less. If the symptom is characteristic, you know the susceptibility is high. So therefore, you have to write down the symptom exhibited and then come to a conclusion. For example, symptom exhibited characteristic, conclusion, therefore susceptibility is high. Then nature of the case, that is according to the Hahnemannian classification of the disease. Is it an acute case, chronic case, so on and so forth. So just for your understanding, suppose we say it is an acute case. Generally speaking, in acute case, susceptibility will be high because the symptoms are characteristic. And in a chronic case, again, generally speaking, the susceptibility is low, or the symptoms are common, indicating the susceptibility is low. So when you take up the nature of the case, you have to take it up with conjunction with the first point. So nature of the case, for example, is chronic, but the symptoms exhibited are PQRS in nature. Therefore, susceptibility is high. So whatever I am telling you, they are just the general rules. They are not hard and fast rules. They have to be moved according to the case in hand. Then the pathology involved. So the pathology could be a reversible pathology. It could be an irreversible pathology. If the pathology is reversible, susceptibility is high. If it's irreversible, generally speaking, susceptibility is low. Again, these are just general rules. They have to be moved according to the case in hand. Then the fundamental miasm obtained from the family history of the patient. So we have to see what is the fundamental miasm. Is it a single miasm? Is it a complex miasm? If complex, what are the different permutations and combinations the complex miasm is in? So if the fundamental miasm is psoric in nature, then susceptibility is high. If it is psychotic, susceptibility is low. If it is tubercular, it is heightened. If it is syphilitic, the susceptibility will be low. Again, these are just general rules. Remember, they have to be moved according to the case in hand. Then history of suppression. So if you are getting history of suppression, you have to see if history of suppression is present, susceptibility will be low. If it is not present, susceptibility will be high. Again, I repeat, general rules have to be moved according to the case in hand. So you may be getting suppression, but at the same time, the susceptibility of the patient is quite robust and the patient still exhibits characteristic symptoms. Therefore, I told you these are just general rules. You have to move it according to the case in hand. Then the sensitivity of the patient at both the mental level and the physical level. So you see the sensitivity, it is seen at the level of the mental symptoms as well as at the level of the physical general symptoms. So you see at the mental level pertain to will, emotion, intellect, and subconscious, whether you're getting PQRS symptoms or not. And similarly on the physical level, that is the cravings, the desires, appetite, thirst, elimination, etc. So if you're getting characteristic symptoms, it shows sensitivity is high. And the general condition of the patient, that means you have to see what is the general condition. Is he conscious? Is he unconscious? What are the vital parameters, the temperature, the pulse, the BP? All this will give you an important idea about the susceptibility of the patient. So suppose the patient is unconscious, suppose there's tachycardia, respiratory rate is increased, and the blood pressure is hypotension, then you know that the susceptibility is low. Whereas the patient is conscious, his TPR BP is normal, is well oriented to time, place, and person, you know the susceptibility will be high. So the general condition of the patient is good. So therefore, you have to sum up all these points and then come to a conclusion. So first and foremost, write down what are the symptoms exhibited and come to a conclusion. Write down the nature of the case, come to a conclusion about susceptibility, pathology involved, conclusion, fundamental mechanism involved, conclusion, history of suppression, conclusion, sensitivity, conclusion, general condition, conclusion. Now let me give you a small example. Again, which will make it very clear. Suppose in a case, I get the symptom exhibited are characteristic. Nature of the case is acute. As I told you, you have to take both into consideration. Nature of the case is acute and symptoms are characteristic. Therefore, susceptibility is high. Pathology involved, reversible. Therefore, susceptibility high. Fundamental mechanism is psychotic. Therefore, susceptibility is low. History of suppression is absent. Therefore, susceptibility is high. Sensitivity at the mental and the physical level. The symptoms are characteristic. Therefore, susceptibility is high. And the general condition of the patient is good. He's conscious, he's cooperative. TPR BP is all right or is normal. Susceptibility is high. So now we have to sum it up of all these 7 points. So in all these 7 points, we are only getting the fundamental mechanism, psychotic susceptibility is low. In remaining all the points, we are getting susceptibility is high. So therefore, sum it up, you find out that from the totality, the susceptibility is high. So only on 1 or 2 points you cannot judge the susceptibility. It has to be judged on the summation of all the 7 points. So I hope this becomes clear to you how to identify the susceptibility in a patient, especially at the bedside. So when you are in the IPD or when you're on the OPD taking the case, you have to work out the susceptibility on these following points, on the summation of all these points. Well, next point is identifying the sensitivity of the patient. So the sensitivity can be judged on both the mental and the physical level. On the mental level, expression of the mental symptom pertaining to will, emotion, intellect, and subconscious should be taken into consideration. And on the physical level, through the nerves, that's the different types of pain, intensity, periodicity, etc. So if you're getting the PQRS or uncommon symptoms at the level of mental level, physical level, you know that the sensitivity is high and the susceptibility will also be high. Identifying suppression and its effects. If totality only contains common symptoms, it tells us the possibility of an incurable case which has been suppressed with modern medication. So you have to remember that if only common symptoms are present, probable end organ damages occurred, or probable is an advanced pathological case, and the patient has taken excess of modern medication. And when suppressed, remember the disease will shift from one level to another. Or the disease will travel from periphery to center, or the disease will travel from less important organs to the more vital ones. So please remember, suppression is, you cannot say that suppression will only take place when the patient is overdrugged with the modern medication, but it will also take place when there's a shift from the periphery to the center, from less important organs to the more vital organs. So once you identified suppression, then the treatment will be different. Well, Again, it's a long chapter on suppression. Maybe I'll do it in some other video whereby it will become much more clearer to you. But with respect to the totality of symptoms, to identify the suppression and its effects, we have to see what are the symptoms exhibited by the patient and what modern medication is taken and whether there's a shift or not. Identifying the correct remedy. Well, the characteristic totality helps us to select the simillimum. So whatever totality you form, naturally you have formed it on probable on a characteristic symptom. So these characteristic symptoms will give you the choice of the correct remedy, but that will also depend upon the phase of the disease expression. So according, your remedy should be chosen according to the Hahnemannian classification of disease. For example, I've given you in acute disease, acute remedy, in a chronic disease, the constitutional remedy. So totality will also help us to identify the correct remedy, or it will help us to identify the simillimum. So that's all in this part. The remaining points will be taken up in the last part, that is the part 6. Hope you enjoyed this video. If so, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you for your patient listening.